Welcome to the City of Florissant Podcast, your go-to source for news, events, and stories from our beautiful community.
Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Tim Lowery. Welcome to another edition of the Florissant Podcast Show. Joining me today is Dr. Howard Fields. He's the Superintendent of the Ferguson-Florissant School District. Welcome.
Mayor Lowery, thank you so much for having me and the entire Florissant community. I really appreciate you all for what you do for the school district and also for welcoming me here. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We certainly appreciate the partnership that we have with the Ferguson-Florissant School District. It means a lot to us in the city and our community, so appreciate everything you guys do.
Same. Thank you.
So what we want to talk about today is Proposition S, which is going to be on the April 7th ballot, and we'll get to that. But tell us a little bit about what's going on in the district right now.
Absolutely. We have a lot of great things going on in the district. We have some growth opportunities. A few things right off the press. Wedgwood 6th Grade Center was just recognized for the Louis Award just due to some fantastic things and programming that are going on in the school. We do have STEAM Academy at McClure South Berkeley. They were one of the Gold Star recipients.
Wow.
We've had some pieces with regards to literacy and some other things going well in our school system. So we're excited about those areas in the district. As the case with a number of school systems, we also have areas of improvement that we'll be able to talk about. But you talked a little bit about the partnerships. We do value partnerships, not just here in Florissant, but with our 9 municipalities, but also our businesses and community members. And so we're excited. We're in a good situation. Our community has very high expectations of the school system, as they should, and it's our role to respond to those expectations.
And I know you do also. You personally had those high expectations, and that's
Absolutely.
what means so much to the community and so much to the district. So we certainly appreciate your commitment.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Proposition S on April 7th. What is it that Proposition S are you guys proposing on the ballot?
Yeah, so Proposition S is an opportunity for us to strengthen the great things that are already happening in our school system, more specifically as it relates to safety, as it relates to security, as it relates to staffing. Those are the pillars that we're really trying to hit home. Again, it's been over a decade, 2014, since the district has gone out for any tax measure. It was 50 cents then, and it was successful. And so when you think about all the things that have changed, as well as the demands, as well as expectations in school systems since then, we took a lot of time to look at what measures we want to take. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit how we arrived to Prop S, but we don't take any opportunity to put anything on the ballots or out to the voters for granted. If we're going out, it is an absolute need. And again, it's been over a decade, and looking at all of our data and survey responses, now is the time for us to go out.
And certainly safety and security has got to be a priority for everybody, not just yourself, but for our entire community, and certainly, especially for our students and our families. And so we certainly appreciate your commitment to the safety and security. You want to talk a little bit about the staffing? Is it to increase staffing, or is it to maintain staffing, possibly pay the employees?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a yes and. So we've had the opportunity to have so many staff members who've been in our school system for decades, and that's great. However, when people decide to retire, because that is a thing as well, and when we try to replace them, what we have found is that our starting salary for bus drivers, custodians, food workers, security, it's not commensurate to those in other neighboring school systems. And so that is something that we had to look at. The other piece is with the RECA or RECA for the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. What we found is that there was a shift from the beginning of this particular measure going out, and now it appears that they are accepting yearbook photos, which is great.
Oh, okay.
We are supporting our families. What we have since learned is that we've had over 1,000 requests for folks. And again, the Manhattan Project in itself, that's a conversation for another day. Having said that, though, we do want to be responsive to the needs of our community members. But when you think about the level of what goes into getting those yearbook pictures, getting them faxed, sending them over, it does take a substantial amount of time. And we're not necessarily complaining about that. Mm-hmm. But the individuals that are helping out and who are tasked with supporting our community, they are then being asked to move away from their other work, such as, registration, answering calls, all of those pieces. And so we do want to support our community. We do believe in yes and. If it's a no, we want to find a way to get to a yes. And in this particular regard, we would be dedicated to continuing to support our communities, but also allowing it not to be at the behest of the work that we have to do for our students in our school community.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of topics there, and I certainly run in the city, and I know about the competitive market out there for employees right now, and it is a very competitive market, and you really do have to pay good wages, good benefits to really get firstly to attract good employees, but then to keep them. It's a competitive market out there.
And we want to train folks and do so well that they can go anywhere, but we want to treat them so that they want to stay. And in order to do that, we can have the best intentions and all of that, but if you can get a $5 or $6 raise at a starting level with a neighboring district, then people have to provide for their families, and we totally understand that.
Yes, sir. So explain the tax levy a little bit. What's it going to mean to the households? What's it going to mean to people?
Yeah, so a tax levy, which is different from bonds, we've had opportunities to engage with our families and communities, and we have received a lot of feedback. When I started, as it's been 8 months on the 8 months on the district, and so not that I'm counting, but there's been a lot of conversation. I had a first 100-day plan, and I did a lot of listen and learns. I've had a number of opportunities to be across the street at the diner, and one of the things that continue to come up is how are we going to support our schools? And it comes into really two different buckets, one of which is infrastructure. Well, Dr. Fields, I attended McClure North, and it's the same since I've been there. That's typically a bond measure where you can look at infrastructure and all of that, but you also have tax levies, which are your daily operational pieces. And so we are looking at that bucket for the daily operational pieces. Again, it's been since 2014. 50 cent was approved then. We're looking at 48 cents, and it's not an arbitrary number. There's a lot of data, a lot of calculations to determine what is something that would be very beneficial and what is something that we want to make sure it is somewhat affordable. And so essentially what we looked at with the $100 of assessed evaluation on average, that's about $8 a month. With the $120,000 of assessed valuation, that's about $9. And then with the $150,000 of assessed valuation for a home, from a resident home, that's roughly about $11 a month. And so I want to be very clear. Someone may say, 48 cents is not a lot. I would actually disagree. Anytime you're asking homeowners, especially in this economy, to support our schools, to make sure they're more safe, we don't take that opportunity lightly. And so what I have a responsibility to do, as well as the Board of Education, as well as all of our staff, is to make sure we are being spectacular stewards of tax dollars. And so with that, before we actually went out for this particular ballot measure, we have had some substantial cuts that were put into place. There have been a level of deficit spending in the past, and this year, going into the year, we were in the red, so to speak, by the excess of about $5 million. We've been able to cut about $5.6 million through some restructuring, through attrition, all of those pieces. And so in addition to doing those things, we're in a better situation. I'm excited to report some of the successes about the school district at the end of the year. Having said that, part of my role, similar to your role as a mayor, we have to look for the immediacy, but we also have to look at the long term. Right. And while we're doing relatively fine as it stands today, and we're heading in the right direction, at the end of the day, you will eventually need to provide the community with your reality of what's going on in the district. And that's essentially what I'm here to do today.
And obviously you have a very large budget, as we do here in the city. What percentage of your budget comes from the local taxing?
I'm glad you asked that question. 60% of the budget. Oftentimes people may say, oh my goodness, you all get federal dollars or you get this. It is 60% of the budget from local support. And so we know for a fact here in Florissant, just is certainly the case with our other 8 municipalities, our community members, listeners, watchers, et cetera, they believe in strong schools. We get that, but they also have to trust the schools and the leadership to do the right thing. And that is essentially what I want to make sure we are conveying in our conversations, but 60%.
I also know you guys went through a strategic planning process, and kind of talk about how does this fit with your strategic
Absolutely.
plan?
Well, I'll even take a step back. When I started, I had a first 100-day plan, and this was part of the interview process. What would you do? Looking at the data. After the first 100 days, there was a little bit of a gap, and then we had the State of the District Address. During the State of the District Address, I did introduce an initiative called Ferg-Flor Forward. And as we were looking at all of the progress and all of the frankly, some of the experiences that we've had in the past. How do we move forward as an organization? And so there were 3 different goal areas, one of which was to maintain resources and take it back to student learning. And so we want to maximize all of our resources, maintain them, but maximize all of those for student learning. And that's essentially one of the elements of Ferg-Flor Forward. Within that context, there was some language about considering a tax measure. And again, that tax measure came up based off of those learning walks, based off of those listening sessions, based off of survey data from the community, saying eventually we have to get to this point. It's been a while, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all tied. One of the things you'll learn about me, Mayor Lowery, I am all about alignment. We have to be alignment because we have to be aligned because disjointed components, that's going to eat any initiative and any budget up. And that's something that we cannot continue to do. And we're off to a fantastic start.
So obviously, this is something that you guys will look forward to. This is something that you guys have obviously put a lot of thought into. What happens to the district if this does not pass on April the 7th?
Fantastic question. And part of our role as leaders, we have to consider those pieces, right? I think part of the roll out in terms of communication is looking at our district as a whole. And if for some reason this was not passed, what do we do to still move forward? Well, certainly we would have to look at a number of things, including class sizes, locations. None of this is new to the education arena. We do have other school districts and other school systems who've had to do those particular things. And so, again, most likely you would see some level of impact in terms of looking at every single budget item, which we already do. And then we have to go from prioritizing, student support and services and safety to even scale down even further. And so again, it's certainly a legitimate question and something that all leaders are tasked with looking at. But I would say that's a piece that we would have to take into account for the long-term viability of the district. What are some areas that we can continue to cut? And as I talked before, we've done a substantial amount of cuts. There have been a lot of restructuring. And we are certainly cutting furthest away from the classroom. That's a home-based message that we continue to hit home. We are not in a situation where we are trying to impact the in-class instruction and all of those things. Part of the tax levy is so we don't have to, and in the event that it wasn't passed, then all things would be on the table.
So in the 2020 census, the city of Florissant actually seen an increase in population. What's happened to the district in that 2020 census? Is it increased or decreased or maintained?
For the Florissant piece, I believe we're seeing it being maintained. Some of our families don't have school-age children yet, some of which have different options. We have 31 non-public school systems in our blueprint, and we understand that. And so we want to be partners to all of our partners, not just, in a sense, other schools. The additional piece is we just had a demographer work with the district to talk about our projected enrollment. And so we do have areas within Florissant. We are more concerned with looking at schools and sites as opposed to cities. But we do see Florissant being almost like a plateau of folks coming into the district. We didn't necessarily see an increase, and we didn't see a decrease. That decrease piece is not the same for those in other municipalities, though I will say that.
Very good. So what else? Okay, so you've touched on a lot of things where this money would be used for. What are some of the other things that this money could be used for?
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic question. And we've talked about a lot today, the thing that I'm excited about, and given your background, you will understand just that security piece. I often say if we're not going to do the best from an academic standpoint, and we are doing a fantastic job in many of our schools, we have work to do. However, if we're not going to show evidence to support that our students are performing at a high level, the thing we cannot miss on is making sure they are safe at school. And so we have 3 high schools. At McClure, many are accustomed to that security checkpoint. And even though we want to enhance that particular checkpoint, we do not have that checkpoint here in Florissant at McClure North. And I think that's very important. And what that means for the listeners and those who are tuning in, there's not a level of resistance between someone in their car before they get to the door. And yes, we do have secure doors and all of that, but we shouldn't even put our organization or the building in a situation where the first level of resistance is at the door. We need that security checkpoint at McClure North, just as we certainly need to do it at STEAM. So I think that's an important feature with respect to what these money would be used for. The other piece is we live in a space right now with technology, and technology is great. And we are also learning that technology can almost ease some levels of anxiety when it comes to safety and security. What do I mean by that? You'll be surprised the number of calls that we will receive, such as, oh my goodness, my child got on the bus and they're not at school, or oh my goodness, I'm at the bus stop and where is my child? And oftentimes, as we know, with bus routes, things change. A number of area schools that are not far from us, they do have the capability where parents can see where the bus is and they get an automatic notification if the bus is late. And at the same time, if their child didn't get on the bus, you know this with from a security background, every single second and every single minute is important. And if there's ever a parent that don't know where their child is and we can't tell them, then that's a problem. So this would help in that particular measure as well. Again, safety and security is the thing that's going to keep me up at night because I understand the significance of making sure we do all we can. And I guess the only other thing is, while we do have cameras, we want to invest more in our cameras. As you know, when things happen in schools, one of the first things you do, in addition to getting folks due process and statements, we have to go to the cameras. Right. And in order to do so, not only do we need storage and hardware and making sure the cameras, are up to speed in terms of technological advances, all of that goes into the safety and security component. And so again, we are doing a fantastic job stretching ourselves with the resources that we do have. And again, the community should have the highest expectations from our schools.
So I certainly appreciate you joining me here today, and and that's certainly all that you've done in these 8 months with our Ferguson-Florissant School District. And I do believe we're moving forward. I do know that we already feel safe, and I think that our students feel safe, but we can always definitely upgrade safety.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. Our SROs and security personnel that we get a chance to work with, they're absolutely fantastic, not just in the work that they do, but their personalities. And I don't know if they get it from you or what have you, but they're doing a great job with our students, and they look forward to that consistency. So thank you, as well as the entire Florissant community for that.
We appreciate that. Honestly, they don't just get assigned there. They volunteer. They want to be in the schools. Absolutely. And that's why they're there. And they certainly enjoy being there with the kids, the faculty of the school, and certainly administration. So we definitely try to pick the right people to put in the schools.
Thank you. You all have done a tremendous job. Thank you for that.
Thank you. That concludes another edition of the Florissant Podcast Show. We are Florissant Strong.